Someone faces everything every day just to be with you. Even if you don't realize it, this person challenges opinions, disregards contrary advice, and battles against fears and uncertainties. Nothing can make them give up, because what they feel for you is greater than any barrier. There's no doubt, no hesitation, just the certainty that it's worth it. Every choice this person makes revolves around you, even if you've never noticed. They've given up opportunities, changed plans, silenced pains, and hidden exhaustion to avoid worrying you. You can't imagine how many times they've found themselves staring into space, trying to gather the strength to keep going, to ensure that nothing and no one destroys what they feel for you. They face suspicious looks, harsh words, doubts cast by those who don't understand this persistence. They hear advice to give up, to take another path, to not waste time, as if what they feel for you is disposable. But instead of giving in, they stand firm, because they know that what exists between you is not something you find on any street corner. There have been moments when fear weighed heavily, when silence felt thick, when everything seemed uncertain. But instead of turning away, this person chose to fight. For you, for what you both are. Because giving up was never an option. This person has endured sleepless nights thinking about how to make you stay, how to prove it's worth it, how to maintain something that the world seems intent on destroying. They've carried their anguish alone, swallowed words they wanted to say, hidden pains that no one could see, and still they remained. Still, they have felt the weight of doubt hovering around you, noticed when you hesitated, when you thought about leaving. And even without certainties, even without guarantees, they stayed right there. Because what they feel for you isn't temporary. It's not a fleeting impulse that fades over time. It's something that endures, that survives, that faces everything without fear of losing itself. How many times has this person swallowed their pride to avoid a fight? How many times have they swallowed the urge to demand more attention, to ask for more? How many times have they seen you being distant and had to pretend it didn't hurt? They hear when people say they're wearing themselves out for nothing, that they should protect themselves, that they should think more about their own needs. But nobody understands what they feel. Nobody knows how much you mean to them, how much every sacrifice, every weight, every moment of uncertainty is worth. Because at the end of the day, this person just wants to be by your side. And do you want to know the truth? No matter what happens, they will still choose you, always. They have thought about giving up. They've had moments where they wondered if it was worth it, if they should just move on, if they were fighting alone. But even in those moments of doubt, something inside them stopped them from leaving. Something that can't be explained, measured, or ignored. They noticed your moments of indifference, felt when your presence seemed distant, when your words sounded empty. They understood your silences, accepted your mood swings, and endured your absences without complaint. Even when everything suggested they should take a step back, they stayed. Don't think it was easy. Don't assume it didn't hurt, because it did. There were days when they had to stifle their own pride to keep going. Days when they wanted to ask if it was still worth it, if there was still room for them in your life, but they didn't ask. Not because they didn't want to know, but because they feared the answer. They've heard you talk about fatigue, about doubts, about not knowing what to do. They've noticed your looks that say nothing, felt your coldness in moments when all they wanted was a sign that everything was still okay. But instead of demanding, they waited. Instead of pushing, they respected your space, even if it meant hurting themselves in the process. She has already faced judgment, ignored advice, and shut herself off from the world because deep down she only wanted you. She gave up people, opportunities, and moments that could have taken her far away, but they didn't. Because no other choice made sense without you. And even if she never said it, even if she never showed it, this person is scared. Scared that one day she will realize she fought alone. Scared that everything she did, everything she endured, everything she sacrificed was in vain. Scared that, in the end, you might simply turn your back and walk away as if none of this ever mattered. She doesn't want empty promises. She doesn't want sweet words that don't hold up over time. She wants reciprocity. She wants to feel that she's not fighting alone. She wants to know that at the end of the day, no matter how tough it gets, and no matter the obstacles that arise, you still choose to stay. Because, despite everything, Despite every swallowed pain, every hidden tear, every sleepless night, this person is still here. For you. She has gotten used to holding her own pain so as not to burden you, to hiding her own anxieties to keep you close, to smiling on the tough days just so you won't notice that inside she's falling apart. You have no idea how many times she has silenced herself to avoid unnecessary arguments. How many times she wanted to tell you how she felt, but backed out at the last second, scared of seeming overdramatic, of hearing an indifferent response, of feeling that her words wouldn't make a difference. She has found herself staring at her phone, waiting for a message from you. She has reread old conversations in an attempt to relive the good moments. She has forced herself to believe it was just a phase, that you still cared the same way, that the emptiness she feels was just in her head. But deep down, a part of her knew that something had changed. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She never did. She just wanted to feel that you're truly there, that she's not the only one carrying all of this on her shoulders, that the love she feels is still worth the effort, still worth the sacrifices, still worth every battle she fought to be by your side. She doesn't want to be the only one fighting. She doesn't want to be the only one worrying. She doesn't want to be the only one feeling afraid of losing, because no matter how strong she seems, no matter how much she can endure in silence, no matter how hard she keeps trying, there comes a moment when exhaustion sets in. And when that moment arrives, when the weight is too heavy to bear alone, will you still be there? Or has she only served to fight alone until there's nothing left? She's felt her heart tighten when she realized that sometimes it seems like she cares more than you do. She's battled against her own mind to avoid creating expectations, to not hope too much, to not get hurt by your indifference. But the truth is, she feels. She feels it when you pull away. She feels it when your responses are cold. She feels it when, even when you're close, you no longer seem to be truly there. And it hurts. It hurts because she didn't want to doubt. She didn't want to question if she still has a place in your life. She didn't want to feel like she's holding something alone that, at the beginning, you both carried together. She doesn't demand your presence, but she misses it. She doesn't expect sweet words, but she needs to feel that you still care. She doesn't want to suffocate you, but she hopes at the very least for some reciprocity. She's already accepted your silences. She's understood your moments of distance. She's respected your time. But for how long? How long will she endure the feeling that she's the only one insisting? How long will she convince herself that she's not begging for crumbs of attention? How long will she ignore the anguish that grows inside her every time she realizes that something has changed? She has already heard from her own conscience that maybe it's time to stop, that maybe you don't feel the same anymore, that maybe you're just there out of inertia, out of habit, out of not having the courage to say you don't want it anymore. But she doesn't want to believe that. She wants to believe that it's still worth it, that you still want her there, that everything you built wasn't in vain. But if it's just her trying, if it's only her holding on, if it's just her fighting, eventually even the strongest love gets tired. She never wanted to beg for love. She never wanted to feel small next to someone who was once her safe harbor. But lately, that's what happens. She finds herself analyzing every word you say, trying to find traces of what were once certainties. She notices the signs, no matter how subtle, and feels the fear grow. The fear of holding on to something that has already slipped through her fingers. She doesn't need you to repeat all the time that you love her, but she needs to feel it. She needs to see in your eyes that there's still truth. She needs to realize that your presence isn't just a habit, a comfort zone, a place where you stay, because leaving would be too much work. She wants to feel that she still makes a difference in your life, that her messages aren't just another notification on your phone, that her words still carry real weight, and aren't just automated responses to maintain something that no longer touches you. She knows that love changes, that the euphoria of the beginning gives way to something calmer, something more solid. But what she feels now isn't stability. It's a silence that hurts, a distance that she can't measure but that weighs heavily on her chest, an uncomfortable feeling that something has been lost along the way, and that only she cares enough to try to salvage it. She doesn't want to create scenes. She doesn't want conversations loaded with demands. But she wants to know, would you still choose to be here? If nothing held you back, if there were no routine, if there were no memories, would you still choose her? Or is she the only one holding on to a love that has already crumbled without anyone having the courage to admit it? She wonders this every time she feels the weight of your absence, even when you're nearby. Every time she notices your lack of enthusiasm, your indifference disguised as fatigue, your way of responding without really saying anything. She feels that something has changed, even if you've never put it into words. And the worst part? She doesn't want to admit it to herself. She clings to the memories of what you once were, trying to find reasons within them to keep believing. She tries to justify your coldness, tries to ignore the obvious signs, tries to convince herself that everything can still go back to how it was before. But deep down, a voice inside her is already screaming that maybe there's nothing left to salvage. She never wanted to be the type of person who begs for scraps of affection. She never wanted to feel like she's insisting where there's no longer any reciprocity. She never wanted to be the one fighting alone until she completely loses herself in the process. But that's exactly how she has been feeling. She feels like she needs to lower her own expectations to avoid getting hurt, that she needs to accept less than she deserves to hold on to the little that she still has, that she needs to pretend that everything is fine to avoid pushing you further away. But for how long? How long is she going to erase herself to maintain something that no longer seems to have a future? How long will she carry the weight of this relationship alone? How long will she suffocate her own desires to avoid being a burden? She wonders if you even notice the effort she puts in every day to prevent everything from falling apart, if you realize how much it hurts to feel like she's loving for two, if you see that, with each passing day, the only thing keeping her here is the blind hope that you will still choose to stay. But hope isn't enough. She needs to feel like she's still part of your life, and not just a memory of what once was good. She needs to feel that your love still has value, that your presence still makes a difference, that her dedication is still recognized. She needs to know she's not fighting this battle alone, because no matter how strong she is, no matter how long she has silently endured, no matter how much she wants to keep going, no one can hold on forever. And she fears that when you realize this, it will be too late. So tell me, do you still want to stay? Or are you just waiting for her to tire out and leave on her own? She doesn't want to be the only one carrying this story. She doesn't want to be the only one who cares, who insists, who can still see a path when everything seems to be falling apart. But that's exactly how she feels, alone in something that should be shared. And with each passing day, the silence weighs heavier. She notices your lack of enthusiasm. She feels your absence even when you're nearby. She sees when your mind is elsewhere, when your attention is distant, when your responses are empty. And that hurts. Because all she wanted was to feel that she's still important to you, that there's still a reason to continue, that everything you've built together is still worth it. But more and more all she receives is a cold space, a disguised indifference, a "I'm fine" that sounds more like an unspoken farewell. She wonders if she's becoming a burden, if at some point the love you both shared turned into nothing more than an obligation for you, if you're there only because you don't want to be responsible for ending it all. And this doubt eats away at her inside, because she once felt that you were her home. She believed that next to you she could be who she truly is, without fear of not being enough. But now all she feels is that she has to walk on eggshells, measure her words, calculate her gestures, fearing that any movement could be the final push that makes you leave for good. She wonders if it's still worth fighting. If, at some point, you will realize how much you've drifted apart, if there's still something inside you that wants to make things work. Because she doesn't want to fight alone anymore. She has given up too much of herself, adapted too much, put her own desires on the back burner, trying to hold on to something that seems to slip through her fingers. And the truth is, deep down, she knows. She knows that true love shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be one-sided. It shouldn't be held together by the fear of losing. But she's still here, out of stubbornness, out of hope, out of love. But how long can this last? How long will she endure? How long will she ignore the emptiness growing inside her? How long will she pretend she doesn't feel your coldness, your distance, your lack of desire to stay? She doesn't want to be the only one fighting. She doesn't want to carry a love that should be shared all on her own. Because no matter how strong it is, even the most resilient get tired. And when that day comes, will it be too late? If you have ever experienced something like this, or have something to say about this feeling, comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, and if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel for more reflections like this. Don't forget to leave a like to support our content.